Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Japan Station.
Welcome to Japan Station, where people come to talk about all things Japan. I'm your host, Tony R. Vega. If you've ever been to Japan, especially Tokyo, then I think there's a pretty decent chance that you've felt this strange mixture of emotions while exploring the city. You've felt overwhelmed, but also curious, also happy, also excited, also maybe a little bit scared because there's just so many things going on in Tokyo when you're in these major districts like Shinjuku and Shibuya and Ikebukuro, and I could go on and on. It's a pretty crazy experience when you see all these people just going from place to place, getting on the train, getting off the train's coming and going, the chimes, the announcements in the train stations, the signs, the kanji, the hiragana, the katakana, the advertisements. It's this thing that really, really just makes an impression on you. And my guest today has done an amazing job at capturing that sensation of going to Japan for the first time and just not knowing where to look. My guest today is Gavin Heffernan. He's a filmmaker and dark sky photographer. His background is actually in horror films. He's the co-writer of The Taking of Deborah Logan and Paranormal Activity 3D. However, we're not talking about horror films at all today. We're talking about his most recent project. It's this really just amazing, but also surreal time-lapse video project that documents 3 visits that he took to Japan over the course of a year and a half. These are 3 different videos that are up on YouTube right now. They are called Dreamlapse Japan. And I think the name describes these videos very, very appropriately. It really does feel like a dream when you're watching these, but it also like makes you feel like you're going to Japan again for the first time. So whether you've never been to Japan or you've been there more times than you can count, or you've lived there or you live there now, I think you definitely should check out these videos. The links are down in the show notes, so go check them out. And well, today, Gavin is going to tell us about how he made them, the experience of going to Japan for the first time and second time and third time, and documenting all these different amazing locations in Japan. He didn't just do Tokyo. He also went off to like Kyoto and Osaka and Kobe and Fukuoka and other places. So again, check out the videos, and the conversation today is a fun one with someone who's just discovering Japan for the first time. I love talking to people like that because, well, I've been to Japan so many times, so it's like normal for me. I still appreciate it. I still love spending time there, but I'm at a very different point in my life. It's not new for me anymore, so it's always nice to talk to somebody who's just discovering all this stuff for the first time and to hear them kind of get happy and excited about these things that for me is like, oh yeah, that's why I like Japan, right? So anyway, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Gavin Heffernan.
Yeah, this is basically a trilogy of time-lapse videos that I shot in Japan over 3 trips over about a year and a half. And we were able to go to a ton of different cities. And I've done time-lapse photography a lot in the past, sort of with the stars and in the desert and a lot of dark sky locations. So Japan was kind of the opposite, at least in the cities. And so I tried to just use these videos to encapsulate what the overwhelming feeling was of being there and the kind of sensory overload that hits you from all sides, sound, picture, visuals, and that was really the idea, was just to sort of try to capture what the experience felt like, but also to do some experimental techniques and try some new things that I had never done before, just to sort of really accentuate the kind of surreal intensity of walking through some of these Japan streets. And that was kind of, how it came about. And it's this, I just finished part 3, which was sort of the quote unquote finale, but that was a 3-week trip, and we were in Fukuoka, Osaka, Kobe, Nara, really a bunch of cities, and just tried to capture as much of it as possible and sort of share a little bit of what it feels like, even though it really is just sort of the tip of the iceberg of what's there.
Yeah. And again, for anybody that's not aware, it's called Dreamlapse Japan. Of course, the links will be in the description and all that in the show notes. So you said this took like a year and a half, and was there a specific thing that inspired you, like to go to Japan? Was it something that had you been to Japan before? Like, what drew you to Japan?
Yeah, I had never been before,
Mhm.
and it was really actually more my wife who was really insisting on going. And I had sort of I'd seen it in pop culture and movies and the kind of Blade Runner type visuals I'd seen before, and so I was always interested in it, but I think I was a little bit afraid of sort of the intensity and the number of people, and I'm not really a huge big city person, so I just kind of thought, this is I don't know if this is going to be for me or not. And we had tried to go a few times, and one time there was like a super typhoon that was going to hit Tokyo, and so we couldn't go that time. And then the next time was COVID, and so it just seemed like the world was conspiring against us. But we finally got out there last summer for the first time, and sort of a lot of those fears I had about a kind of packed metropolis and an overwhelming city all just kind of went away in a strange way because I found that the cities had such an organic flow and an energy, and it had been described that way to me, where you're walking down the street and there's 10,000 people, but nobody bumps into each other, and no one gets in each other's face, and it has sort of a natural order to it. And I found that, and I was just kind of overwhelmed by the beauty of it. And even though I'm sort of more kind of focused on some of these dark sky projects where we actually try to get people to turn their lights off, this kind of overwhelming sensory overload that was coming was just something I had never experienced before. And using the time-lapse photography, does these sort of long exposure photos. So it actually allows more light to come in and give you a more intense feel than you would get just on a standard video. So I kind of just tried to capture what it felt like in that first video. And I didn't even think I would be coming back, but it became really addictive to us. And my wife and I really both became addicted to the culture and to the experiences of Japan. So we decided to go back a couple of times and try to just capture more and keep experimenting with the photography. And that's kind of how we got to three videos here.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's got this like surreal quality to it, of course, with the lights and the kind of like I don't know, streaking at points. It's all very cool, but of course you also see like the people moving around and the craziness of Tokyo. But like you said, Tokyo, yes, it's a packed city, but it's also very organized in a way. Like it's not like people are shoving and all that. Like it's actually like the train conductor sometimes shove you into the train, but like the people themselves
Yeah,
are they're
no,
all
it's
just
it's
used to it,
amazing.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, it was kind of like it reminded me. There was one morning where we got up and we were just got on the subway. This is in part two in Shibuya. It's a big, busy
Yeah.
subway station there, and it was kind of like there was just like 1,000 salarymen walking in a row, and it was kind of like salmon swimming up
Yeah.
in the stream. It just had this kind of a incredible beauty to it, and all you had to do is just sort of get into the flow of people, and then suddenly you were in that stream essentially. So it kind of just seems like it shouldn't make sense, but it does just seem to make sense. And I think the other thing that was really sort of swept me away about Japan was that I found that it's almost like they like there's art in every fiber of existence there. Like everywhere you look, it's just art. I find whether it's the kanji or the way the lighting in the restaurant hits your plate just at a certain angle, or the way the plate is laid out, or the way it just sort of every sort of fabric of it, from the architecture to the advertising and the lights, just all had this kind of incredible surreal art feeling to me that I thought was really exciting. And I think all these things have been said before, but it was also this idea of just like ultra futuristic city with gadgets and devices I'd never seen before that made me actually feel like I was living in the future. And then, a temple that's thousands of years old, like on the other side of the street. There's this incredible dichotomy between the ultra modern futuristic world and then this culture that's so much deeper than anything you could kind of find in North American culture because of how far back it goes. So that was really fascinating.
Yeah. So did you, for example, well, I think it was parts 1 and 2 are in Tokyo, right? So did you plan this out? Because I'm sure by part 3, where you're going like to all these different cities across Japan, that must have been much more planned out. But what about at the beginning? Did you like make a list of places you wanted to go shoot?
Kind of, yeah. The beginning one, in part one, we actually did end up going to Kyoto and
Hmm.
Osaka as well. It was mostly Tokyo centric, but we did get there as well and took the bullet train to some of those places and shot some footage on the bullet train and just again trying to capture that experience. And but it was sort of important to try to plan it out. And for part two, we spent a little time in Yokohama as well, and then the other part was in Tokyo. So yeah, but what we kind of found with Japan cities in general is like you want to plan out to some extent, but then you also want to be free to just turn left instead of right and go down this alley and go to this bar, this restaurant, and this bridge or overlook. And so the same kind of applied to the photography and the film plan of it all, which was, have a good itinerary, have a good schedule, but also be free to change it up and go where the sun is, or discover something down a different alleyway. And I think that was important, and I kind of give that advice to people that are traveling there too, is just have a plan, but don't over plan. Be open to the experiences and especially because it's so safe there. I think that was another thing that was so intoxicating and still is so intoxicating about it. And I know it's a cliche that everybody talks about, but it just was, you never think about safety when you're walking around at 1 o'clock in the morning with a camera in an alleyway or going here or going there. It just had such a safe feeling about it that it really is intoxicating and comfortable. And on this last video, actually, I got so comfortable with how safe everything was that I actually left the camera, the tripod running, and I went across the street, basically a block across the street to go to the convenience store to get a drink and come back. And I just the idea of doing that in really anywhere else in the world would
Yeah.
have just made my head explode. But I just had gained that confidence that there is just such a respect and a pride that no one's going to take that camera. And
Yeah.
so it was, it's interesting, but I couldn't even believe I was doing it as I was doing it. I'm so hardwired to,
Yeah.
look over your shoulder and, oh my God, is someone going to take this? And so, those parts of the culture are just, especially I think now in North America, there's so much anger, vitriol. It's something very soothing about a culture where you're not constantly looking over your shoulder and you're not worried about, did I lock the front door, and I know it's not perfect, but certainly from a tourist perspective, you're never really worried about where you are at certain times of night and stuff like that.
Absolutely. You can't say there isn't crime, but it's so infrequent that yes, it's extremely safe. Like I've literally walked from Tokyo to Hiroshima, and I did this because
Wow. Oh yeah.
I I felt safe doing it. I didn't feel like I was going to, start walking through like some extremely dangerous neighborhood at any point. Like I felt totally comfortable with that regard of this crazy thing that I did. And yeah, like that's one of the things that I love about Japan. Transportation is so easy. It's safe. You generally don't have to worry about getting mugged or something. And, it's just some random part of some town. So
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing and it's a wonderful feeling.
Especially when you're new someplace, and you
Yeah.
don't speak the language and you really are thrown into this overwhelming fish out of water perspective. And
Mhm.
it's just it's nice to know that you don't have to also worry about that. I mean, again, I know it's not perfect. I know crime happens, but
Hmm.
you can feel the difference between, you don't feel this oppressive police presence, and you just don't feel like there's this huge shoplifting wave or anything like that. It just doesn't feel like, I don't know if that's just the culture of the people. It doesn't feel like it's because they're afraid. It just feels like because it would be dishonorable to commit a crime or something, but it would be a go against the pride to steal something. But it's fascinating, and it can't be kind of underestimated in this world when you actually can kind of feel safe in a big city with millions of people going about their day. But that was
Absolutely.
a really nice part about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, well, I assume that given how much you were going around Japan and shooting, like things must have happened. Like, did you have any mishaps, or did people talk to you? Did you have any surprises? Any interesting things that happened while you were shooting footage?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, kind of nothing too crazy. And
Mhm.
I've had some wild stuff happen before in the desert and stuff, but it was pretty straightforward. Probably the closest thing to an incident that I can remember is some of the deer in Nara wanted to headbutt the camera and give it like a little love tap, but that was probably the closest thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think if there's some amazing, incredible mishap story. It was
What about
not
like
too
shooting
much.
in Tokyo, for example? Like, were you able to find good spots that weren't like, overrun with people? Like, what was that process
Well,
like?
yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's the fun of it is,
Mhm.
because a lot of when you're doing the sort of desert stuff and a lot of the remote shooting, you're really trying to keep every light out of the shot. You don't want a flashlight or a car to drive by. But the beauty of this, in when I was shooting part two in Shibuya crossing, it's just millions of people, oceans of people. But I think with this technique, what's fun is the people become part of the shot. They become part of the palette. And so essentially what I would do is is a technique they use for night sky photography called star stacking, which you've probably seen before, but basically you do a time lapse of a night sky over 3 hours or so. And then what they do is it sort of just it saves each picture. So as the stars move, it creates a big spiral. You'll often see like a big circle in the sky or sideways line, and so that's the technique I used a lot in the night sky stuff. But what I tried to do is apply the same thing to the city. So suddenly now, even the people become this. If you save each shot and they sort of blur through, they kind of have this incredible dreamy quality where it almost becomes like a river of people moving through the lights. And so Shibuya was really intense. That's where I really had to try to the hardest part, you're trying to basically, you don't want anyone to bump into the tripod because if they even touch it, like it moves like a millimeter, then the whole thing gets screwed up and you can't do the pans and you can't do a lot of the effects. So the hardest part really, now I think about it, was really just trying to kind of form a human barrier around the tripod so that a bunch of drunk people don't bump into it or something like that. And that was a Dotonbori as well. In
Yeah, yeah.
Osaka was very similar. And I was kind of standing right in the middle of the people just to try to really get the flow and to feel like they're kind of coming right at the camera. So that was sort of part of it, was just trying to kind of block it, but you can't get in front of it. But, dealing with that sort of intensity of the people. But it seems like, yeah, people in Japan seem like I think if they understand photography, it feels like, so most people kind of were very respectful and would try to go around the camera or be very aware of it. I've had a few, not so much in Japan, but in a few other countries I've shot in, people will come up and ask questions, ask what you're doing, and that kind of thing. There were one or two tourists who asked what I was up to, and one nice guy gave me some bug spray. It was at Osaka Castle at sunset, and I didn't know that all the bugs start coming out right at that moment. So I was grateful to him for that. But Yeah, I can't remember what the initial the sort of the challenges and stuff. But that
Yeah,
was really obviously the other big challenge, which is really just the amount of walking,
yeah.
and which everybody says from the tourist perspective, but this is kind of that magnified by a little bit. So probably between 15 and 20,000 steps a day, and I got this really great ultralight tripod that it collapses and doesn't weigh too much, and the camera doesn't weigh all that much. So you're able to kind of get into some of these places, but a lot of times to get the best angle, you got to climb up that mountain or climb up to the 30th floor. You're trying to kind of get these perspectives. So yeah, it's a lot of that, just trying to stay energized and but that's not too big a deal.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. No, it's people generally, very respectful, and unless you're like really like in the middle of something and really in the way, I think, they move out of the way. They're pretty
Yeah,
nice
yeah, for
about
the
it.
most part.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
they seem to understand. I think photography is pretty popular there. So,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
sometimes we leave the camera. I think it was when we were in the Shinsekai. I left it kind of, it was raining, and I had it under a little alcove about 50 feet away from us, and a few people just were kind of mesmerized by what is this camera doing off on its own. Uh, but yeah, no, it's been pretty straightforward for that. And there's so much to shoot. There's so much beauty. I yeah, I think that, the one thing I would love to do, I'd love to go to the countryside and do a little more of the rural stuff. It's a little more intimidating, I think, because we're still really very much starting to learn the language and a little bit. So it's a little scarier to think go somewhere where there's nobody who's a tourist. But I think, if we ever do get a chance to go back, that's probably what we would try to do, is do something a little more traditional and rural to get the other side of the experience.
Yeah, yeah, that would be pretty cool. I mean, once like the trains get you close, but then after that, it's like you may have to rent a car or
Yeah,
I don't know, a bicycle or something.
I know. Yeah, car is scary too. If I could rent one of those Mario Kart things they have in Tokyo, maybe I could handle that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no, it's part of the adventure, and
Yeah.
I think I think that can. There's a lot to discover. I think is the magic of it too. It's sort of people. I think of Japan in terms of these cities largely, but as soon as you get on that bullet train and you get 15 minutes out, it's just green hills and
Yep.
rural, lush, vibrant fields and mountains. And I think my wife said it's something like 90% mountains. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
possible,
there's a
but
whole lot about yeah, I don't remember the
yeah,
percentage, but it's a lot. Yeah.
yeah. So it's interesting, yeah, from that perspective. But there is so much more to discover in Hokkaido and
Oh
Okinawa. Would be
yeah, yeah.
interesting. How many times have you been? Have you been? Or you've been stayed there for longer, right?
Yeah, so I continue to go back at least once a year, but yeah, I lived there for 4 years and I started going, I think it was 2006. So it's been a lot of times.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's neat. Well, you're a little closer too, so that helps, I guess.
Yeah, well, from
How far
Hawaii
is it
it
from
is much
home?
closer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
not
yeah.
we're not too bad,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's an intoxicating place, and I think that you can see why it's sort of bringing a lot of tourists in. And I know that it's getting a little over touristed as well in some areas, but what we found was kind of with anything is that you don't have to go to the top five sites that are there. You can discover incredible things just down a alley this way or go that way, and suddenly, an amazing restaurant that isn't suddenly a Michelin star one, but
Yeah.
it's just everything you can discover is interesting. And a temple over here that isn't the sort of top three temple, but it's still the most amazing thing you've ever seen. So I think that's kind of the key to not get too swept up in the tourist of it all.
I
Possible.
I I very much agree, and of course many people go with a tight schedule and you want to hit up the main spots, and I totally understand that there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have a little bit extra time and you can devote like an hour or two to just I'm gonna try walking from this neighborhood in Tokyo to this neighborhood in Tokyo, and you're
Yeah.
gonna come across little shops and just seeing what a normal Japanese neighborhood looks like, and you may come across a shrine or a temple.
Yeah.
And that discovery process, I love that. I love just coming across something that I didn't know was there.
Yeah, that was absolutely our favorite part of really all the trips. Yeah, you'd sort of maybe set a destination for one spot, or we want to check out a bar or something, and then it's suddenly okay. Let's walk 25 minutes this way or 25 minutes that way. You know you're going to be safe, and you discover so much, and you actually get to feel what the culture feels like, and it's not sort of an artificial Disneyland presentation of it. It's what's real, and yeah, it's just so many kind of hidden nooks and crannies. Especially, I think with Japan cities, what's different is they go up like 8 or 10 floors. So
Yeah.
you see a building that's interesting, and then there's 8 bar signs up the side of this building, and oh, look what's up on 8F, and all these little mysteries and special hidden bars and things like that just are kind of fascinating. So it has like as much as it's a mature city with so much culture, it really has a sort of childlike wonder that
Hmm.
seems to be pervasive in a lot of even the advertising, and it has just sort of a big sense of wonder about life and culture, food, and you can just see people on the train, and when they're looking at their cell phone, they're looking at like someone making gyoza or something like that. There's like a real passion for the food. So it's just kind of a fascinating culture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, all right. So, the first two parts, mainly in the Tokyo area, the first of the Dreamlapse Japan videos, but you said you did go to the Kansai area, and there was Yokohama as well. And then part
Yep.
three, you go to even more places, Kobe and I think Fukuoka and a few other places. So, what about like outside of Tokyo? Were there any particularly memorable places? Any particularly memorable shots that you got?
Yeah, a lot of interesting ones. Like we spent a lot of time in Fukuoka. So we spent a week in Fukuoka as the base, and 2 weeks in Osaka as the base for part three. And
Mhm.
one of the fascinating ones in Fukuoka was this Itoshima Torii shrine. You've probably seen before, but it's this
Yeah.
big white line that's right on the ocean, and that was really really striking and beautiful. And I'd seen it before in pictures, but just to kind of be there with your feet in the ocean and see the waves lapping up, and there was something pretty magical about that. Another thing that was kind of fun is we went to Fushimi, which is sort of a little area with canals in the Kyoto region. And that was pretty interesting too. We took kind of a canal boat that took us through to the dams and showed us the history of that. So it was kind of fun, especially when you can sort of get to some of the more traditional things. And but again, it really underlines kind of the dichotomy of it, where you can be at sort of an ancient shrine in the morning, and then a 6 foot 6 story arcade in the afternoon, and it's all just kind of part of the singular experience there. Um, but yeah, I think like the idea with this one was we wanted to sort of go for a little longer, go to more towns, try to really get outside of the main scope of tourists, which admittedly we were those people on the first trip. We were kind of hitting up a lot of the usual suspects in terms of the places we go see. But we were just trying to get a little bit outside of that and just try to feel a little bit more of what the culture is. And yeah, so it's still city centric, but I think we were able to kind of capture a little more of that. And there is a
Definitely.
consistency though you see in a lot of these cities. And what's kind of fascinating too is there's always like festivals going on and fairs, and there's a beer festival and a music festival and tents, and there's just they work really hard, and it's a cliche, but they seem to really play hard too, and go big, and it's sort of like there's just a real joy for life and celebrating and enjoying life. And then obviously such a hard work ethic on the other side. So that balance is really interesting too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you're just going around, there's a pretty decent chance you will stumble across one of these, whether it's a matsuri or some like local fair or some food thing, especially if you're going to places
Amazing.
like the parks and all that. Usually there's something going on.
Everywhere. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just, it's just fascinating, and so, yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that are fascinating about it are the cliched things, and it's just very clean and very safe and very polite, and so, but those are a big deal, and when you can kind of put all those things together into one experience, it really is it's intoxicating and addictive in a way. Um, but it's intense as well. I mean, after 3 weeks, we were pretty tired because it was, you start taking 5 subways a day, and you
Yeah.
have to kind of use your Google Translate app to figure out what button to press on the toilet so it doesn't, eject your seat you off it and things
Yeah.
like that. You kind of start to like the charm is there, but we were a little worn out after the 3 weeks. I think of just kind
Absolutely.
of the intensity. My wife kind of described it as like it's a little bit like being on the Amazing Race, being in these Japan cities
Mhm.
because you kind of have to work together to find it. Okay, it's on the 6th floor. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, cross. So it's just like an intensity that comes with trying to get to places and get to the restaurants and bars. But once you get there, you feel this sort of sense of accomplishment. Like, okay, we made it. We found the sushi place. We got it. So that's kind of part of the intensity of it. But yeah, it was fun. Like for this one, we stayed in kind of a residential area of Osaka, the Chuo ward, and it
Yeah.
was just like an Airbnb, really in like a neighborhood of just all the local working people, and that was kind of what we used as our base. It was fairly close to Osaka Castle, but all these really great local restaurants that we could just walk into, and that's where they had there's a shot in this last video where they had these incredible manhole covers that go over the sewers, and they have these beautiful etchings of the Osaka Castle in the manhole covers.
Hmm.
That kind of is the point I was making about art being everywhere here and every inch of it, and suddenly here's the sewer cover, and suddenly there's this beautiful ornate carving of Osaka Castle on it. And we saw that in a few other places in Nara and Kobe. And so it's that kind of thing was just that's really, really just beautiful and fascinating about the culture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those manhole covers, they're all over the country. Yeah, you find some really interesting ones sometimes. But it's those little details that make it really interesting, right? Those
Yeah.
little discoveries you go like, oh wow, like they actually bothered to, take the extra time to do something like this for most people wouldn't even notice it, but look at this little detail on this, whatever. And those are
Yeah.
always really nice.
There's a pride, I think,
Mhm.
and you feel that too. Because I have a friend of mine who we went to film school with, who's out there. We met up for lunch, and I was trying to explain to him, what the feeling was, and it was really just what I felt in general was the sense of pride, and you feel it even with people's jobs. You and the guy parking cars, or who has the smallest job, that you can think of. You feel the pride, and that they're part of the society and part of this sort of this general sort of societal system, and that goes a long way, I think, too. It really makes a difference, and even with the no tipping and things like that, suddenly it's just you're kind of not allowed to tip, and yet you get the best service you've ever had in your life, and they really care if you're having a good experience, and so that's really something beautiful about the culture that I learned as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I highly recommend the videos. They are whether you live in Japan or you've never been or just visited. I think it's just a fun way to experience it. Like I said, Tokyo and several other cities around Japan. So you can look up Gavin Heffernan on YouTube, but I will include the links to all three down below in the show notes, and you can go check them out. So, Gavin, anything else? Anything you wanna anywhere you want to direct people, or is the YouTube channel the
No,
best
that's perfect. Yeah, the
place?
YouTube channel is great, and if you want to see more of the night sky stuff, I have a project called the Sky Glow Project, and it's skyglowproject.com, and that was a friend of mine from film school, Harun Medinovic, and I went across North America capturing these endangered sites that were getting screwed by light pollution and the effects on nature and humans, and so there's a ton of videos and good stuff there that you can check out on that website as well.
Mhm.
Kind of the opposite of the Japan City stuff. It's sort of like the cousin to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's fun too. But I really appreciate it, Tony, and thanks for everything you do to sort of spread the good word about the culture. And
Uh,
it's fascinating to me, and I'm really just feel like I'm just starting to learn about it. But this is what's great about sites like yours and the podcast.